Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. Guys, we getting through our Thanksgiving episode. Well, is this the Thanksgiving episode or is the last one the Thanksgiving? I'm not sure which one is the Thanksgiving episode, but this is the Thanksgiving games that we're going over, okay? It was a lot of good games going on. What week was this? This being week 13. It was a lot of really good games. A lot of movement happened in the standings. That's one thing that really did happen. A lot of movement happened. I can get that. Had to fix that. A lot of movement in the stands happening. So we're gonna go over the week 13 games. Pick some week 14 games. Just kind of breeze through the playoff pictures a little bit. So of course, the first week or the first game on Thanksgiving was the Packers versus the Lions. Lions play every Thanksgiving, by the way. So the Green Bay Packers even the series by winning 31-24. Uh, which is really putting the Lions in a bad spot, actually. So let's start with the losing team because we always shout their stats out first. Jared Goff was 20 of 26, 256 yards, two touchdowns, no picks, but was sacked three times. His pass rating was like 132.9. So basically 133 was his pass rating, which is phenomenal. And they still lost. Jahmyr Gibbs was 20, he had 20 carries for 68 yards. Uh David Montgomery actually had the rushing touchdown. Jameson Williams had a day. Jameson Williams, he had seven receptions for 144 yards, one touchdown. Uh, and who's this? Isaac. And Isaac Tesla also had a receiving touchdown. Now they ended up having. They had no sacks, no sacks, and no picks. So it was really hard to for them to get pressure on the Packers. Jordan Love was 18 of 30 for 234 yards, four touchdowns, no picks, no sacks. That's we just talked about that. This was 124.2. That was his passer rating. Josh Jacobs had 17 carries for 83 yards. There were no rushing touchdowns. Um, Dontavion Wicks had six receptions for 94 yards and two touchdowns. He balled out. Christian Watson had four receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. Um, Romeo Dobbs had four receptions for 20 yards and a touchdown. And Luke Musgrave had one reception for 23 yards and a touchdown. Let's see what happened with them. They got Michael Parsons had two and a half sacks. Ooh. And then they had another sack. So they had three sacks on the day. They had no picks, of course, no forced or recovered fumbles. So, two borderline playoff teams, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. I actually like both of them to an extent. Now, let's start with Green Bay. Green Bay, with this win, they jumped to 8-3-1. They got a lot of contributions from a lot of people on their roster. That's kind of how they win games. They get contributions from wide receivers, tight ends. You know, Jordan Love, as I've always said, which I like his game is around throwing. You know, about 20 times. This day he threw eight. He threw for 30 attempts this time, but like around like 20, 25 times, that's usually where he really starts to shine. A solid defensive effort, and Michael Parsons uh, doing what he was supposed to do and leading that defense how he's supposed to. Sorry for saying a lot. I'm bugging out with that. I really want to see from the Packers something though. Like we know that they're talented. We know that the Green Bay Packers are a team that you're gonna have to reckon with in the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs. They got to develop some nasty. They got to develop something that makes the other teams fearful of them. You know what I mean? Um, we're still waiting to see that from the Packers. Great win, great division win. I want to see them down the stretch. Now, for for the Detroit Lions, this loss actually makes it hard for them because they're right now on the outside of the playoffs looking in. If the playoffs started today, they would be. Oh, don't you do this to me. I'm sorry, y'all. If the playoffs started today, they'd be the eighth seed. And they're a game behind the San Francisco 49ers. Now, it's not just that, it's that when you look at their schedule, this is Detroit's their remaining schedule. They have the Cowboys coming up this week, who the Cowboys just beat both teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. So the Cowboys are red hot. So they got the Cowboys next week. Then they got the Rams the week after that. Then they got the Steelers, the Vikings, which is a divisional game which you can lose at any point, and they finish off with the Bears, who may or may not need that game, but might need that game. So we'll have to see. This is going to be a tough slate for them. You know, this is going to be a tough slate for the Lions to figure it out. I was always worried about them coming into the season having replaced their offensive and defensive coordinators. I know it just seems like, oh, the players are everything, but when you would get rid of coordinator, like it could transform everything. Anything from blocking assignments to routes to depth of routes to it's the little things that could philosophy on running as opposed to passing. All of that changes, and that happened for them. So it was a lot. It was a complete team thought process overhaul in terms of what they're viewing as metrics of success. Clearly, they got some work to do with that. They're not in a bad spot, but they're kind of in a bad spot, if you see what I'm saying. So keep an eye on Detroit. I'm gonna be watching their games going down the stretch, and yeah, I think that's it. Okay, okay, all right, cool. So next game, the Chiefs. They went into Dallas to play the Dallas Cowboys, who we just talked about, the red hot Dallas Cowboys, who did in fact win this game. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-28. So both of these teams are now basically fighting for their playoff lives with essentially the same record at this point. Excuse me. So for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, he's let me just make sure. Okay. Okay. Patrick Mahomes, he's 23 of 34, 261 yards, four touchdowns, no picks, but he got sacked three times. His passer rating was 129.7. Kareem Hunt had 14 carries for 58 yards. There were no rushing touchdowns. Rashee Rice had 8 receptions for 92 yards and two touchdowns. And Travis Kelce had 45 yards. He had a touchdown. Hollywood Brown had a touchdown. So that's what they did. Let's see what. Hold on. So they had one interception. See, did they have any sacks? No, no sacks, but they did have an interception. All right, for the Dallas Cowboys, they were 27 of 30. Oh, excuse me. Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was 27 of 39, 320 yards, two touchdowns, one pick. He did not get sacked. He had a pass rating of 100.4. Dak Prescott lit them up. Javonte Williams, he had 17 carries for 59 yards. No rushing touchdowns, but that Malik Davis had a rushing touchdown though. CeeDee Lamb had 7 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. George Pickens had 6 receptions for 88 yards. No touchdowns. Did they have another touchdown? Oh, Jameson Williams had a receiving touchdown as well. So let's see. Jadeveon Clowney's actually been playing good for the Dallas Cowboys. Jadeveon Clowney had 2 sacks. Did anybody else have a sack? Dante Fowler. They are really resurging some names here. Dante Fowler had a sack. They didn't have a pick. They didn't have a pick, but yeah, they had three sacks. So, listen, y'all. The Dallas Cowboys are red hot and they look to make a push towards the playoffs. I want to once again say how wrong I was about this game because I was certain the Kansas City Chiefs were going to come in here and beat the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, was I wrong. Uh, the the Cowboys are getting contributions from a lot of places. That defense that once looked bad is shaping up. It's not a great defense, but it's looking at least to slow down opposing offenses enough. This while this offense is terrorizing this league with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb leading that helm. The Cowboys going down the stretch. The Cowboys going down the stretch just to see. Hold on before I get to that. If the playoffs started today, dang it. If the playoffs started today, the Cowboys would be the ninth seed. Now, they play the Lions next week in what is probably going to be in a elimination game. I don't know why that word was so hard for me. They're going to play the Lions next week in an elimination game. And then they also got to surpass the 49ers and see what they do. And we're going to keep an eye on the 49ers too. So they definitely have work to do, and they have a lot of work to do. Now, going down the stretch for them, they have, of course, the Lions this upcoming week, as we said. I'm sorry, y'all. Oh, this is acting up. Okay, so yes, they got the Lions this week. They have the Vikings next week. The Cowboys have the Chargers the week after that. Commanders, which is always a divisional game, and they have the Giants. So I mean, they definitely have two games left on their schedule that's interesting, to say the least. So, but Kansas City's in a completely different situation. So now, if the playoffs started today, Kansas City would be the 10th seed. Now they are tied with the Steelers at 6-6, but they have a 33% chance of winning the or making the playoffs. Basically, they're in a elimination game. They're basically, for all intents and purposes, in the playoffs already. The Kansas City Chiefs, I'm talking about. They're already in the playoffs for all intents and purposes because they can't lose again. They'd have to jump the Steelers, Texans, and have the Chargers, Colts, or Bills fall apart. That's pretty much what has to happen. um, we'll see. You know what I mean? So looking at their schedule going down the stretch, crap. So looking at the Chiefs' schedule going down the stretch, they have the Texans this week, which once again is probably going to be what is up with this word with me today? Elimination game. They have the Texans this week in what should be an elimination game. Then they have the Chargers, who remember they lost to the Chargers before. Then they have the Titans. Then they have the Broncos. They lost to the Broncos before as well, and the Raiders. So I think with the Chiefs, you can kind of calm down a little bit because I actually think they're going to run the table. I kind of do think they're going to run the table. Now, that all starts with this week and winning this game. But having lost to the Broncos and the Chargers earlier in the year, neither one of those teams are going to sweep the Chiefs. So I expect them to beat both of them teams, and they got to do what they got to do with the Raiders in their division. I understand that. And they have the Titans. So this is the game. The Chiefs, this is the game. Figure it out. Okay. So, who else did we have on Thanksgiving? We had the Ravens and the Bengals. Joe Burrow returned for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he basically said to the league, "Who you talking to?" Because the league's been very nasty. I've been hearing very nasty things about Joe Burrow. And he comes in his first game back from toe surgery, and he beats the Baltimore Ravens. He beats the Baltimore Ravens. Was this in Baltimore? This is in Baltimore. Yes, he goes into Baltimore and beats the Ravens. The Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals, beat the Baltimore Ravens 32-14, keeping their playoff hopes alive, of course. So let's keep the Ravens in there. Okay, so Lamar Jackson, he was 17-32, 246 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. And he had 3 sacks. He had a 65 passer rating. Not great. He had, and then Derrick Henry had 10 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown. Although they gave the ball to Derrick Henry early and then they stopped giving it to him. I didn't know what that was about. So, whatever. And Lamar is actually hurt too. So, keeping that in mind too. Isaiah Likely had 5 receptions for 95 yards. They did not, of course, they did not have any receiving touchdowns. Mark Andrews also had 47 yards receiving. Let's see what they did. They had a sack. Mon Humphrey had a sack. Was that the only one? So they had 1 sack. And then they had a fumble. No picks, though. They had a fumble and a recovery. All right, let's see what Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow was 24 46, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and 1 sack. He had an 83.7 passer rating. Chase Brown had 15 carries for 78 yards. They did not have a rushing touchdown. Jamar Chase had 7 receptions for 110 yards. No touchdowns, though. What is this guy's name? Andre Lucivius. He had a receiving touchdown. He had 29 yards receiving. And what did they do? Did they have any sacks? They did not have. They had 2 sacks from Joseph Osai, who had a very good game. They had a pick on Lamar. They had a forced fumble. They had 2 forced fumbles on Lamar. 3 forced fumbles on Lamar. And 3 recoveries. So they pretty much took it to them. Now, I'm not going to say too much about the Bengals because I do think they're done. The best they can do right now is be 9-8. If they run the table, they'll be 9-8. I do not believe 9-8 will get you into the playoffs. They could be interesting. They could play spoilers to what's going on. They damn near did that to the Ravens on Sunday. Now the Ravens, of course, them and the Steelers are at the top of their division, but the Ravens are in first place right now, rebounding from a 1-5 record, pretty much. And this being their next loss. The only problem with the Ravens that I'm having is Lamar's hurt, and it looks like their identity is weird. And when I say that is they're not really giving the ball to Derrick Henry. So like Derrick Henry, out of his yards, he did all that in like the first like 2 drives. He started off hot and they went away from him. And I'm not sure why the Ravens would go away from what's working in the running game. That's just not Ravens' thing. So I want to make sure that they don't overthink what's going on with themselves and they keep the main thing the main thing. And, they continue to be successful in that kind of way. So if the playoffs started today, the Ravens would actually be the 4 seed. And they have about a 69% chance because they are tied with the Steelers right now, but they have the same record. So that's going to be a tight race going down the stretch. And when I say tight, I kind of think both teams are going to lose a couple games going down the stretch. Now, for the Ravens, they have game 1 of the Steelers Ravens this upcoming week. A lot is going to be determined this week for the Ravens and the Steelers. You know what I mean? And that's going to be interesting. So they got the Steelers, then they come right back for the Bengals, who I expect them to beat the Bengals the second time around. But then they have the Patriots, the Packers, and the Steelers. This is going to be hard. This is a hard stretch. I'm not gonna lie. This is a hard stretch. They have 3 division games. They got 2 Steelers games, 1 Bengal game. Then they have the number 1 seed Patriots and the Green Bay Packers. Oh, they're gonna lose some of these games. Let's see what we're gonna have to see what happens with the Steelers. Okay. And then on Friday, we had the Bears versus the Eagles. Give me 1 second just to set that up. Okay. So they had the Bears versus the Eagles. And the Bears looked very impressive against the Eagles, by the way. The Chicago Bears went into Philly and they won 24-15 against the Philadelphia Eagles. And some player stats. Jalen Hurts was 19 to 34, 230 yards, two touchdowns, and one pick. And he had about an 84 passer rating. Not good, not bad. Not bad. More not bad, but mm, eh, you know. Saquon Barkley continues to struggle. 13 carries for 56 yards, no touchdowns. AJ Brown had 10 receptions for 132 yards and two touchdowns. And let's see what they did defensively. They had one sack, they had two sacks, and they had a pick. And that's what they had defensively. Okay. And then Caleb Williams, he was 17 to 36, 154 yards, one touchdown, one pick, and he had two sacks. He had a 56.9 passer rating. Kyle Monaghay had 22 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift had 18 carries for 125 yards and a touchdown. Jeez. And Cole Kmet had led them with 36 yards passing. See what they did defensively. They had no sacks, but they did have a pick. I saw that Kevin Byard pick. They had a pick, and then they had a forced fumble as well. Guys, the Chicago Bears are for real. I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on them, but they're now 9-3, and I love what's going on with not just him, but the confidence. You can see the confidence in Caleb Williams. But not only just that, I'm very happy that he could have a bad game. I'm not gonna say he had a bad game, but he didn't have a great game. He can have not a great game, and they can still find ways to win. They ran the ball down the Eagles' throats. I'm not surprised per se that the Bears beat the Eagles. I'm surprised how the Bears beat the Eagles. I thought the Bears could beat the Eagles. I didn't think that they would run the ball down the Eagles' throat the way they did. They ran for like almost 300 yards. They ran the ball for almost 300 yards on the Philadelphia Eagles. I haven't seen that in a long time. And they controlled this game. I know the game said it was 24-15. It really felt more like it was 44-15. This wasn't a very close game. So shout out to the Chicago Bears, who are the new number one overall seed in the NFC, by the way. So we're gonna keep an eye on them. For the Eagles, I kind of said this for the Philadelphia Eagles. I kind of said the best thing that could happen to the Eagles is that they actually lose to the Chicago Bears, and they lost. The point that I'm making with the Eagles are content. The Eagles don't think that who they play can come in and beat them. And they're only figuring out that this team can come in and beat them midway through the game. And now they're scrambling, searching for answers and everything, and everybody can see it. You can see the Eagles are like, oh, shocked they can come in and beat us. So this is the punch in the nose that I feel like the Eagles needed. They need to stop being so pretentious and play. And that's not just the players. That's the coaching staff too. I can't even think Patullo, whatever the offensive coordinator's name is. He needs to understand that he's putting this whole team at a detriment with his play calling style, with the calls that he's doing, and clearly what he's asking Jalen Hurts to do, because Jalen Hurts clearly is not comfortable throwing some of the passes that Kevin Patullo is asking him to throw. And they keep putting this. They keep putting them in this situation. I think a couple weeks back when AJ Brown spoke out, he got called a diva and all these other things. I think he was 100% right. They're not coming into games with the preparation that we can be beat. They're not hunters. They're not hunting anything. They're not you I know you know what I'm saying. I know you know what I'm saying. Maybe this is the wake up call because nobody can say it's not their fault now. Nobody can say it's not their fault now. So maybe this is the wake up call that they were looking for. We'll see. But I am curious about the Eagles if this is what was it, the 2023 season when they started 10-1 and lost in the first round? Is it that team or is it last year's team that won the Super Bowl? We're going to find out at the as the season winds down. Now, for these two teams, they're actually talking about the number one seed in the playoffs and seeding in the playoffs. So as I look at their schedules, it's more about how many games they'll drop to and where they'll be in the playoffs. So, so next week the Bears play the first of two games against the Packers. That's gonna be an interesting game. Then they have the Browns, then they have the Packers again, then they have the 49ers, and then they have the Lions. By no means is the fact that the Bears have the number one overall seed mean that they they should feel like we could miss the playoffs because they could. That's how hard of a schedule they have going down the stretch. And that's real. So looking at the Philadelphia Eagles schedule, who I do expect to respond, by the way. They got the Chargers this week. Chargers, of course, no joke, but I do think they'll end up well, we'll get into to that. But the Eagles got the Chargers this week, then they got the Raiders, then they got the Commanders, then they got the Bills, and then they got the Commanders again. So I do think, you know, their schedule's not as rough going down the stretch as some other teams. So we'll see about the Eagles and where their headspace is at, and are they going to still be playing down to people? Because clearly they can get beat by anybody. So my Indianapolis Colts, we actually lost the first of two games to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans came into Indianapolis and won 20-16. Uh Daniel Jones was 14-27 for 201 yards, two touchdowns, no picks, but he did have a sack. He had 101 passer rating. Jonathan Taylor had 21 carries for 85 yards. Okay. Alex Pierce had four receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. Not much else going on there, but let's look at some defensive stats. We had one sack, we had two sacks, so some pressures going on there. We did get a pick, and we had a forced fumble as well. Okay, cool. So for the Texans, C.J. Stroud, he was 22 of 35, 276 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick, and he got sacked twice. So he had a 75 passer rating. Um, Jaquavius Marks, he had 19 carries for 64 yards. No touchdowns there. Nick Chubb had a rushing touchdown, and Nico Collins actually had his first rushing touchdown in his NFL career. He also had five receptions for 98 yards, and there were no passing touchdowns. And Jaden Higgins also had 65 yards receiving. Let's see what this defense did. They had one sack. Okay, they had one sack, and they had no picks. Guys, in terms of the Indianapolis Colts, like I said, this is actually my fear when it comes to my Colts. Daniel Jones isn't having a bad game. He didn't have a bad game. It's just not take you over the top worthy, you know? It's not we needed a better roster for him if he didn't have a fracture in his fibula. But the man's got a fracture in his fibula. Like he can't even move left and right. He can only go forward and back because the fibula is not the weight bearing bone. So it's you can't go left and right, but you can go front and back, and that's basically what it is. So if he was fine, I would still be saying the same thing. But now with this, I Guys, the Indianapolis Colts could miss the playoffs completely. I mean, we started off 8-1. We could, or 8 or 7-1, 8-1, something like that. And we could not even be in the playoffs. That's how we look right now. And I think we got to do some soul searching and some identifying of what we're supposed to do when teams say, "Hey, we're going to take away Jonathan Taylor," because that's going to happen every single week going down the stretch. Now, in terms of the Houston Texans, I tried to tell y'all, man, like you got to shut them out if you get the opportunity. You don't want the Houston Texans to be in the playoffs. You don't want the Houston Texans to get in the playoffs. If they're correct and if they're correct about what CJ Stroud said, and he learned something from being hurt the last 3 weeks, and just in terms of getting the ball out sooner and quicker, and he could figure that out. Well, this offensive line all of a sudden doesn't look as bad as it once did. Now, the ceiling, I think, is still there because the truth is the truth, and people are going to open up the truth about your weaknesses, and that's just the nature of the NFL. But that defense is the best defense in the NFL. CJ Stroud, I'm a huge believer in. If the offensive line isn't a problem, then pretty much everything is a problem, and somebody needs to shut them out because they could really wreck some things in terms of the playoffs, the playoff picture, and the Super Bowl picture. They can. This defense is for real, y'all. So, but let's look at the Colts game, or the Colts games going down the stretch. So yes, we lost to the Texans. So we got the Jaguars the very next week. Then we got the Seahawks. Then we got the 49ers. Then we got the Jaguars again. Then we got the Texans. Whoo! I don't know, y'all. I'm not feeling great about the Colts at all. I'm not feeling great about the Colts at all, y'all. I'm gonna be honest with you. It might have been a great season to start, but this is looking bad going down the stretch. But we'll look at the Texans going down the stretch. So they have the Chiefs this week in an elimination game, pretty much. Loser of this game probably does not make the playoffs. Chiefs and Texans, and this is basically the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna be glued into this game. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm watching this game. It's the Sunday night game. Oh, I'll be watching that. Believe that. Now, if they beat the Chiefs, then they got the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Chargers, and then the Colts again going down the stretch. Very winnable, very doable schedule based on how they've been playing and the fact that they've been red hot. Very doable. Okay. But just so you guys know, if the playoffs were to start today, right now the Colts we would be the sixth seed, and the Texans are going to be the eighth seed right now. So they would be outside of playoffs. But like I said, we'll see. We'll see. But they got to play the Chiefs this week, and that ought to be interesting. Okay, where are we at now? Okay, in a surprise game, the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers beat the Los Angeles Rams, giving them a third loss of the season. They lost 31-28. Matthews, it feels weird putting the Rams first and talking about the Rams first, but they lost. Matthew Stafford was 18-28 for 243 yards, two touchdowns, and two picks. And he also had two sacks. So, and the last sack was a forced fumble, which was the clincher for the Panthers. We had 85, 86 passer rating. Blake Corum, he had 7 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. And Kyron Williams had 13 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. Javier Smith had 3 receptions for 81 yards. Puka Nakua had 6 receptions for 72 yards. And Devontae Adams, he had 4 receptions for 58 yards and two touchdowns. That's where the two touchdowns came from. Excuse me. They had two sacks on the day. Did they have any picks? No, I don't think they had any picks. Okay. So the Panthers, Bryce Young, he was 15 to 20, 206 yards, three touchdowns. He had no picks, but he did have two sacks. His passer rating was 147, which is remarkable. Is it Kuba or Chuba? Chuba Hubbard had 17 carries for 83 yards. And Rico Dowell had 18 carries for 58 yards. Jalen Coker, he had four receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. Teteroa McMillan, he had one reception for 43 yards, and that was a touchdown. And Chuba Hubbard, he also had 41 yards and a receiving touchdown. So, listen, man, these Carolina Panthers, man, these Panthers, they looking interesting. Can they win the NFC South is the question for them. But they putting up performances like beating the Rams and stuff like that. I'm looking at them and I'm saying, and it could be interesting. I really do. I think they have an interesting roster. Like, does it have its limitations? Of course it does, and we all know it. But I think they have a very interesting roster. I'm not mad at the Panthers. Let me say it like that. And Bryce Young, man, this might be my favorite Bryce Young game that I've ever watched. I was really impressed with him and his composure. He's clearly grown as a quarterback, and his mental strength has clearly grown as well, man. He's leading the charge. He's taking a hold of this team, and he's making sure that it's known that this is his team. Um, Now with the Rams, I'm not gonna overlook this loss. They lost to a good team. Matthew Stafford, you can't fumble the ball at the end of the game. I still think the Rams, they're the right now they're still the best team in the NFL. They've been the most sturdy. Yeah, I mean, they've won the most games consecutively. They're a great team to look to watch. I really love. Sorry about that, guys. I really love watching them, and I really do think that they're a threat to the Super Bowl. The Rams, their defense, I love their defense still. Um, Having two legit pass rushers, having cornerbacks that are really good, having that 1-2 punch at running back, having that 1-2 punch at wide receiver. Everybody like they have a team that they can win a multiple kinds of game. They can play multiple kinds of games, and it doesn't really matter who has the ball and who's catching the ball, or who's running the ball. They got it. You know what I mean? So I'm very interested to see them going down the stretch, and we'll keep an eye on them. Now I'm curious about the if the Panthers can what they're going to do going down the stretch. You know, I just haven't looked at their schedule going down the stretch. Panthers, they got the Saints, then they got two with the Bucks and the Seahawks. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we're gonna see. I'm actually happy to see. I'm excited to know that this division is going to be decided at the end of the season, and the Bucks and the Panthers are going to play twice going down the stretch. So a lot's going to be determined. You just wait and see. I believe that the Rams are still the number two seed. So it's all good. You know what I mean? It's all good. All right. Who we have next? Okay. Buffalo Bills showed the Pittsburgh Steelers who was boss yesterday. They won 26-7 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Buffalo Bills beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-7. Aaron Rodgers actually played with the fracture in his non-throwing hand. He was 10 of 21 for 117 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. And he also had a sack. It was 65 passer rating, was not great. Jalen Warren had 10 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. and Darnell Washington, the tight end, the big tight end, led them with two receptions for 45 yards. Not much passing. Did that defense do much? They did get a pick. They had two forced fumbles. I would say they played pretty well, all things considered. Josh Allen was 15 to 23, 123 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He had a 75 passer rating. James Cook had 32 carries for 144 yards. Ray Davis had 9 carries for 62 yards. Josh Allen also had 38 yards and had the rushing touchdown. James Cook also led them in receiving with 3 receptions for 33 yards. Keon Coleman had the receiving touchdown. Man. Okay, so this one is more of a philosophy and just asking the question: Is this the Bills looking that good, or is this the Steelers going on that trend and looking that bad? Because both have kind of showed itself. I'm very happy that the Buffalo Bills were able to win a game against a good team. And bravo to them. Bravo to them. I said to everybody, they're going to look really good going down the stretch. They're going to look good. Expect it. You know, good teams do respond. And I think this is probably my favorite win for them because when you just look at the stats, you really don't see where these points really honestly came from. It's hard to read to see what happened. But this was a really good team win, and it was great to watch them finally win a game in which Josh Allen didn't have to be great in order for them to win it. So this is a real good sigh of relief, a good, take a breath. We can win that game too. Just put that in your head. And I think that's a phenomenal way to feel going down the stretch. Steelers ain't looking that great though. I'm gonna be honest with you. As I said, I think the Buffalo Bills are gonna win. They're gonna be in the playoffs. So I'm gonna look up the Steelers. I just want to see who they're playing going down the stretch. Like who's on their schedule. All right, so they got the Ravens this week within the first of two games, which is going to say a whole lot. They got the Dolphins. Then going to have the Lions, and then they're going to have the Browns, and then of course the Ravens week 18, which is probably going to go for the division. Very winnable games. You know what I mean? They have. I can see the path for them, but we'll see. A lot will be figured out going down the stretch, starting this week with when they play the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll see. Yes, I did. Got all of them. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Okay. So we're breezing straight down there. So here's my favorite thing about this time of the year. So now that we've gone through, now think about how far we've gone in this season. We've gone from in the off season seeing what they were going to get the free agency period. We've watched the draft. We've watched the rookies come in. We've watched the rookies develop. We've watched um we've watched the season go on. We've gone from looking at the season and saying, "What's your thoughts on these people, these teams? What do you think about this? How are they playing? What do you see?" To who's in, who's out. And that's the next step that we're going to be taking. Who's in, who's out. And you're going to see this next month answering those questions a lot. And I can't wait. And I can't wait to see the end of this season and just, watching everything unfold. And there's going to be a lot of games unfolding. And we're going to see what happens, going into the playoffs. Okay, so let's talk about week 14 games. So we're starting off with the Thursday game. Woo! The Thursday game is going to be the Cowboys and Lions in what's going to be in there go that word again. Elimination game. What is wrong with me in elimination today? I don't know what's going on with me. The Cowboys and Lions in an elimination game. I actually think the Cowboys are going to win this game. Now, let me say something to the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, if you want me to take you serious, if you want to be taken serious, you this would be it wouldn't even be this one. It would be a crappy team, but coming off of winning two really impressive games, against the Philadelphia Eagles, against the Kansas City Chiefs, it would be very Cowboys like to come back and lose to the Detroit Lions. Not only because they should win. Detroit Lions have a whole lot of injuries and stuff like that. Like Amon St. Brown's not even going to be playing. This is a game that you have to win to take that step to make sure the league knows I'm serious. This ain't the other Cowboys. This is the new Cowboys. So I'll be really interested to see that happen. Okay, so we'll start off with that. Then we got the Colts and the Jaguars. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no reason to think that the Colts are gonna beat the Jaguars. I have no reason to think it. Um, this looks bad. Straight up, this looks bad at this point. I'm expecting the Jaguars to win that game. Bengals and Bills. Are the Bengals gonna play spoiler to the Bills? I'm picking them. I'm picking them. Let's see it. Let's just see how this roll out. The Bengals are gonna play spoiler to the Bills, and they're gonna beat them. And then we're gonna laugh next week about how we thought more or thought higher of the Bills of the Buffalo Bills. I'm picking Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow. Excuse me. And of course, Ravens Steelers. One of these two teams is actually going to go in losing two straight. I think I'm gonna pick the Steelers on this one. I think I'm picking the Steelers on this one. I I just think they just hit such a floor that it's like not really like them, and they need a morale win. Like they lose this game, Mike Tomlin might be going the following week. Probably not, but you get what I'm saying. So I got to go with the Ravens on this one. So then so then we got the Bears and the Packers in Green Bay. Dang it! I just want to see if they played the Packers already. They did play the Packers. Oh no, this is the first of two games. Okay, I'm wrong. So so the Bears and the Packers played the first one. This is in Green Bay. Um, do I think the Bears are looking good? Yes. I think this is going to be some humble pie game for them, and the Green Bay Packers who are starting to get things going back, in that direction. So sorry, Bears. I think you're going to be giving up that number one overall pick or number one overall seed right now. All right. And then the Monday night game is actually going to be the Eagles and the Chargers. I'm going with the Eagles. I think the Eagles, you, it's time to respond. It's you've messed up a lot. You acted you was comfortable. You need to show that you were a little uncomfortable. You need to show the league that you're a little uncomfortable, and this will be the game that you come out and you show that for. I'm picking the Eagles over the Chargers. In the game of the week, the Kansas City Chiefs at home against the Houston Texans. Now, guys, if you don't get up for this game, there's something wrong with you, or you're just not a football fan. This game, oh my goodness, I can't wait to watch it. Y'all not gonna bug me then. I'm getting y'all out the way. Y'all not gonna bug me. We watching this game. The I kind of expect the Kansas City Chiefs to win the game. Ooh, I don't I don't know. You made me pick. You made me pick. I kind of think the Kansas City Chiefs at home, losing two straight, backs against the wall. They've been the champs. They're gonna be the champs again. Let's see. Let's see. Uh, Yeah, I got nothing else to say. I think the Chiefs are going to win it. And I think that's going to wrap up things with this. I think that's going to wrap up things for us. So, once again, you can catch our full episodes on Spotify and YouTube. And you can catch the reels on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We all over the place. And I appreciate y'all always rolling with me. And it saddens me every time I got to tell somebody, cuz you don't know football. I'm your boy Reek. And I'm gonna see you when I see you. Peace.